Welcome back to my channel. The video today we're going to be going over Python conditions and conditional statement. So that's our if, else if, and else statements. We're going to be using several logical conditions for mathematics, which is supported by Python. These conditions are the equals, the not equals, less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. The only difference is the equals, which is used by two equal sign, and the not equals, which is an exclamation mark and an equal sign. Moving on into our first conditional statement, the if statement. An if statement consists of a Boolean expression which results are either true or false, and it is followed by one or more statements. So let's create a variable called a and give it a value of 15. Let's create another one called b and give it a value of 17. Okay, now to create an if statement, it is written using the if keyword, which is why we can use if when naming a variable because it is a reserved word. So if b is greater than a, semicolon, and then use the print quotes b is greater. When we print this to our console, it should print b is greater because b is greater than a. So when we print that, b is greater than a. Now let's move into our next conditional statement, which is the if-else statement. It also contains a Boolean expression. The if statement is followed by an optional else statement, and if the expression results is false, then else statement get executed. If it is also called alternative execution, in which there are two possibilities of the condition determined in which any of them would be executed. So let's give a value, let's define a variable and give it a value of 5, and define a variable called b and give it a value of 8. Now we get our if a is greater than b, semicolon, print a is greater than b. And then this is where our else comes in. Else print b is greater. When we run this, it should print out the b is greater. It first goes through this conditional statement right here, and since this is false, it'll go down to the next and print this. Now if this was not the case, if this was not false and true, it'll print this and forego this. So for example, if this was 4, it'll print a is greater than b, but it won't print b is greater. Now let's move on to our else if statement. The else if keyword is Python's way of saying if the previous conditions were not true, then try this condition. So actually, let me comment out this codes. So it doesn't confuse us. So let me put a comment and use our else if statement. Okay. So give it a variable of a equals 5, b a variable of b equals 5 also, and then we'll do our conditional if statement. If a is greater than b, print quotes a is greater, and then we'll use the else if keyword, else if a is equal to b, because that's in Python, that's how we use the equal. We have to use the double equal sign, and then we use the quotes, print a and b are equal. Also, it's giving us an error because it's not in quotes. And then else comes after it, and print b is greater. When we run this, it should print a and b are equal because they are both the same value. Now the next conditional statement we'll be going to is the nested if statement. Nested if The nested if statement is having an if statement inside of an if statement. So an example would be, let's create a variable called x and give it a value of 41. And then we'll go if x is greater than 10. Oh, if x is greater than 10, print x is above 10. If x is greater than 20, print x is also greater than 20. And then we finish off with our else statement and print x is in between 10 and 20. X is in between 10 and 20. Good. So when we run this, if x is greater than 10, it should print x is above 10. X is greater than 10, so it should print this statement. If x is greater than 20, it should print x is also greater than 20, which x is greater than 20. Else, print x is between 10 and 20. So for this, it printed x is greater than 10, which it is, it's 41, and x is also greater than 20. Now, if x is between 10 and 20, let's say x is, for example, 15, it should print x is above 10. Yes, it is not above 20, so it'll skip that statement because that is false, and it'll go to the else statement because it is in between 10 and 20. Now let's prompt the user a question to input whatever number it is and print the statements according to the answer. Let's get LeBron rating, and then to ask the user a question, you have to use the input function. Input, put it in quotes, what do you rate LeBron? And then make sure you put a space so you can have that space at the bottom here. And whenever, since this is a number, we have to put float. And then don't forget your quotes. Now let's go into if LeBron's rating is less than 80, print are you okay? Else if LeBron's rating is less than 98, print you still off. And then we are finished with our else statement. Else, print, there you go. So let me comment the rest of this code out so we can just focus only on our last code right here. Okay. So we created a variable called LeBron underscore rating, and the variable we are gonna ask the user what do you rate LeBron to input their rating, and we have to use a float because it's a number and it's an integer. So if they rate lower than 80, it'll print this statement. If they rate higher than 80 but lower than 98, it'll print still off. And if it's anything 99 or 100, it'll print there you go. So let's see how that runs. What do you rate LeBron? Let's go with 78. Are you okay? So that's it because it's less than 80. Now let's go 92. Still off because it's greater than 80. It's not less than 80, but it's also less than 98. So it'll skip this, it'll run this, but not this. Now let's try to get to our else statement. What do you rate LeBron? 100, of course, because it's the GOAT. And then there we go. Well, thank you guys for watching this video. Stay tuned for the next video, which is going to be going over loops, for loops and while loops. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.